to our channel. This is a channel designed to help people with all their different stages in learning to drive, and we're going to be looking today to help people that are driving manual cars. If you're learning to drive in an automatic, this video will be of no use to you at all, because we're going to be talking about the clutch pedal. Now, if you're somebody that is looking to learn to drive, or you're already having driving lessons, or you're already having some practice with your parents, and you just don't seem to be getting on with the clutch, okay, a lot of it is because you don't actually understand what the clutch is doing. And I think when you have a much better understanding of what the clutch is doing, it helps. So let's get into this nice meaty subject. We're going to talk to you about what the clutch does, how it moves the car off, how it stops the car from rolling backward, and all things with regards to trying to get the car to move off smoothly, etc. So the first thing is inside the car area, in the engine area, there are two plates, and I'm just going to do that, and you can see that we've got one plate here that's attached to the engine and the other one is attached to the wheels. Every time the clutch goes down, the plates come apart. Every time the clutch comes up, the plates go back together. So while the engine's off, you can move the clutch up and down. It does nothing. Okay, so when the engine is turned on and the clutch is down, can you see the one on the right turns? Okay, so if you want to make the car drive, you need to create a link between the engine and the wheels, and that means having those two plates together. Now, while the engine's on and it's not in gear, you can move your clutch up and down a million times and it will do nothing. When the clutch is apart, and we can have a little look at these two plates, the one that's attached to the engine turns. If we push on the gas pedal, can you see how that turns faster? Okay, so when you look in the car and you see that it says revs, that's short for revolutions, and that is how many times that one is turning in a minute. So it all depends on different cars. My car, when I'm teaching my learners, it needs about 2,000 revs for them to comfortably move the car off. So that means that that one there is spinning at 2,000 times a minute. So when this car is not in gear, it's in neutral, and this clutch is going up and down, even though the one on the right is spinning, it does nothing. Okay, so the difference is going to be when you actually go to move off. So if we put the clutch down and we pop the car into first gear, okay, then when you go to move off, you set the gas, which that's already set on. So say that's turning at 2,000 revs to allow the car to move off. Okay, when the car is in gear, you can't just move that clutch up and down. If you do that, and you don't do it correctly, that's when you're going to have a problem. So we know to make the car move, we need to link the engine to the wheels, okay? And the only way that we can do that is by letting the clutch up. Now, if you think about it, if this one is spinning at high speed and this one isn't, when you go to let the clutch up, you need to let the clutch up very gently, because when they start getting closer together and they get to the thing called biting point, that's when the plates are just touching. They're just getting used to each other. If you've got one that's spinning at 2,000 revs a minute and the other one isn't, and you let those clutch plates together really quickly, like that, what happens is the one that's attached to the engine says, come on, let's go, let's go. The one that's attached to the wheel says, no, I'm not ready, I'm stationary. They start having this fight, go, no, go, no, go, no. Then when the clutch plates come up too quickly and it gets a little bit of a shock, they have a Barney and the car stalls. So that's the first thing that we have problems with the clutch, because people let the clutch up too quickly when they want to move off and the car just conks out. Right, so when you have your car, you need to find where your biting point is. So you're going to have clutch to the floor, you're going to have clutch up, but somewhere in that process, you're going to have your biting point. Now, my car only actually has the clutch come up about, I don't know, less than an inch. I would say just less than a couple of centimetres, and it will already bite. Some cars will bite about halfway up, some might bite almost towards the top. Okay, so you need to develop a muscle memory of where that clutch down is to that bite. And once you've got that muscle memory, that's going to help you. So you've got floor to bite, floor to bite. When the clutch is down on the floor, does nothing, and then you're going to get it up to wherever that biting point is. But it's that biting point where all the hard work goes, because that's where those two plates get together and they get used to each other. I don't know if you can see on this, but the one on the right is definitely spinning faster than the one on the left. So the one on the left that's attached to the wheels is just getting used to the one on the right. That's where we then have to be very gentle with that clutch. So floor to bite does nothing. So when you've got, a bit of experience, you'll be able to put your clutch right from the floor to that biting point without it doing nothing, and you'll be able to do it really quickly. But once we get to that biting point, we need to make sure that those plates are coming together gently and evenly. As you get a bit more experience, you will still be able to do that little section a little bit quicker, but when you're first getting used to it, the best thing to do is to take it nice and steady so that you don't conk the car out. So at the moment, we've got a link between the engine and the wheels. It's in gear, which means that car will propel forward. The engine is making the wheels turn. Okay, so another time when you might stall is if you're coming to a stop. So say we were just driving along, it doesn't matter what gear we're in, but if we were driving along and then we want to come to a stop, well, as soon as you start coming off the gas, the car will start to slow down, the revs will turn slower. So obviously generally the engine will start slowing the wheels down a little bit. That's called engine braking. But then if you start pushing the brake because you want to come to a stop, you're pushing the brake and you're telling the car to stop. But all the time these two plates are together, they're telling the car to keep going. So if you keep pushing the brake, but you keep telling the car to keep going at the same time, the car will start to have a fight and the car will conk out. So if you're going to come to a stop, you need to make sure that the engine's not propelling the wheels. Okay, so as you're braking and you're coming down towards a stop, the clutch must go down so that those plates are apart. Now, all cars are different, so some cars you can go quite slow with the brake down before you have to put the clutch down. You'll have to work out in your car where that point is. My car, when it gets to about 15 to 16 miles per hour, it doesn't want to keep braking to come to a stop without the clutch going down. But I've had cars that you can go right down to 10 miles per hour before you need to put them down. So you will obviously have to work that out in the car that you're learning to drive in, or what you get in the future. So are we with it at the moment? We know that the engine needs to go together the plates need to go together for the engine to propel the wheels so that it makes the car go forward. Okay, so that's just for moving off and coming. So if your car was to stall, either because you've let the clutch up too quickly or you've tried to slow the car down and stop it, but you've left the clutch up and you're trying to propel the car forward and the car cuts out. Okay, if your car has start-stop, the first thing you would do is put the clutch straight down to the floor. And on start-stop cars, more often than not, they will restart. Okay, And if that does that, great. Sometimes in a start-stop car, you might find that when you go to put the clutch down, it doesn't restart. And if you look on your dashboard display, it will most probably tell you that you need to start the car manually. So while the car is on the floor, you'll either turn the key on, or if it's a keyless car, you'll press the button and the car will restart. But if you've got a car that doesn't have start-stop and your car stalls, the first thing you need to do is put the clutch down to the floor. Now, while all of this is going on, you might need to secure your car. The brake might need to go on, the handbrake might need to go on. We're not talking about that on this particular video. We're just talking about what you do with the clutch. So if it stalls and you haven't got start-stop, put your clutch down to the floor, and then what you're going to do is turn your key to turn the car back on itself, or press the button, like I say, to get that restarted. So that's moving off and stopping so far with the clutch, and what to do if you stall the car. So the next thing we're going to talk about is trying to move away quickly. So if you want to move away quickly, there's only one pedal that makes the car go faster, and that's this one. So if you think about it, if we've got those revs going faster, when the two plates come together, which this is not how you'll do it, but when the two plates come together, the car is going to move quicker. If you throw the clutch up, it doesn't make the car go quicker. All it does is start spluttering, the car has a shock, and it's more likely to conk out. So if you want to move off normally, I would say that you most probably are going to be mixing about 50-50, with the gas being increased and the clutch coming up. So if you're thinking about it on a seesaw type basis and it's 50-50, that will move off nice and gentle. But if you want that car to go that little bit faster, you're going to want some extra revs on. So say, for example, 2,000 revs on a normal move off in the car. My car would mostly want about 2,500 to move off quickly or uphill. So I would start with extra revs, and then when the clutch starts to get to the point where it's at that biting point and I start to go, I still want to keep letting that one up the same, but as I go, I'm going to keep increasing those revs. So what happens is extra revs to start with are going to help, and increasing the revs will help your car to then move off quickly. But the clutch must always move slow. You move that quickly, we know that all that does is make your car either do kangaroo petrol to move off, or it will actually totally stall, and that's no good to you. So that pedal there, the gas pedal, is the only one that's going to make your car move quickly. Now, obviously, don't go pushing so much on the gas that the car goes off like Usain Bolt and you end up losing control of the vehicle. We're not saying to do that, but in general, the gas is going to be increased. The gas is the one that's going to make that car move. Right, so let's now have a look at the clutch with a hill start. So don't try to move off in any gear but first gear on a hill. First gear is always the best gear to move off in. It's the most powerful gear. There's certain times, like moving off on snow and things like that, that you might do second gear. We're not talking about that on this video. We're talking about generally first gear is the most powerful gear. That's the best one for moving off. First gear for moving off uphill. So if we've got the clutch down to the floor, which we have, and the car is in first gear, okay, and we're going to do some gas, we will set extra gas, okay, so we're going to do extra gas because it needs power to get up the hill. And then what you're going to do is let your clutch up, and when you get to your normal biting point and they just start to touch, that actually won't be enough to move you off on the hill. What you're going to need to do is let it up just a little bit higher. And what you'll do is when you sit in the car and you look at the front, the bonnet will start to lift up. When it's lifting up, it's because it's trying to move off, but the handbrake is holding the car still. Once you've got the bonnet lifting, you know that car's only going to be moving forward. When you've done all your safety checks, we're not talking about that on this video, you then would manually take off your handbrake if you've got a manual handbrake, and then the car should only move forward. If it rolls back, you would have moved your clutch slightly down while you were taking the handbrake off, and you've taken it away from the point where that bonnet was lifting. When you're learning to drive on a car with an electronic handbrake, I'll be honest, it's a little bit tricky. For an experienced driver, it's no problem whatsoever, but it's a little bit tricky. So you set your gas like you would do. You would let your clutch up to that biting point and a little bit above till you see the bonnet start to lift. But the car doesn't take the handbrake off until it's happy. So what you need to do is don't rush by doing the gas and the bike pedal, because what happens is sometimes it shocks the car, and the car then sometimes will either do this kangaroo petrol forward or it will stall. So I would say to you, once you get to the point where that bonnet is lifting, then what I would say is give it a tiny little bit of extra gas, then move the clutch about the thickness of a pound coin, pause it, a little bit of extra gas, pound coin up on the clutch, pause it. The handbrake will eventually take itself off on the electronic handbrake, and then you just, again, gradually adding a little bit of gas while you let a bit of the clutch up, a little bit of gas, a little bit with the clutch up, until that car then moves off, and we've got that full link from the engine to the wheels. If you're on the car with the manual handbrake, even again, when you take your handbrake off, I would still say to you, don't rush those pedals, a little bit of gas, pound coin up, a little bit of gas, pound coin thickness up, a little bit of gas, pound coin thickness up, just while you're getting used to it. Eventually you won't even think about it. It'll be like riding a bike. You'll just add the gas in, let the clutch up, and everything will be going great. So that is how we use this clutch. That's how we make it so the car doesn't roll backwards. That's how we make the car so it moves nice and smoothly. Now, if you were going to try to move off just the tiniest little bit, you just want to creep. Maybe you're trying to do this to get out of a very difficult junction. Once you get to your biting point and you only want it to move a little bit, you just want to creep and peep forward a little bit. Just let the clutch, like I say, up about the thickness of a pound coin, and then just push it down again. Up and down. So it just creeps the car forward a little bit and then just slows down towards a stop. Creep and stop. Now, when you're really experienced, you might creep and just let it keep creeping. And then if you can see it's good, you creep out. And if it's not, then obviously you'll come to a stop. But you can do a creep and peep by just moving the clutch slightly up, slightly down, slightly up, slightly down. You can actually move the car off without having any gas on when you're doing little bits like that. I would encourage you to keep your gas on anyway, but it can actually move. You can move a car off without using any gas at all on a car with a normal handbrake, not an electronic, unless you've already taken the handbrake off, but it will move just with the tiny little bits of movement up and down on the clutch. I hope this video has helped you. I hope it makes a bit more sense as to what's happening inside the car. Get out and practice it. If you've got your own car that you can go and practice outside of your driving lessons, these are the sort of things that you can go and practice. If you're struggling with it, have a word with your instructor. If they haven't already had a little go at doing it with you, have a little go at working on that clutch so you can see what it's like when you're doing it, just the tiny little movements. Remember, if you're learning on one car and you're practicing in another car, the bites will be different. Everything will feel a little bit different. Some cars need more gas than others. Well, you know, that's just converting from one to another. But this is the basics of how it works. I hope this has helped you. If it has, give us a like. That will obviously helped me to know that this was beneficial to you. If there's any particular subjects that you would like me to cover with regards to any of the controls on the car, then just drop us a comment and I can look at trying to make some content of that. But for today, that's that one. Have a good day.